Today, I'm breaking down 5 wide receivers that look great on paper, but will absolutely tank your season if you're not careful. Let's get into the traps before they trap you. And let's kick this off with DK Metcalf. Look, I get it. He looks like he was built in a lab, but at this point, he's a fantasy wide receiver version of a movie trailer that always disappoints. Since 2020, he's never finished higher than wide receiver 20 in points per game. And in the last 3 seasons, he's finished as a wide receiver 24, the wide receiver 22, and the wide receiver 30 in points per game. That's not elite. That's not even close to elite. And now he goes from Seattle, who last year ranked 5th in pass play percentage, to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who ranked 28th. This is a seismic downgrade in passing volume. But it gets worse. He also goes from Geno Smith, who's been top 2 in accuracy rating each of the last 4 years, to Aaron Rodgers, who last year ranked 22nd in accuracy rating and threw the 8th most uncatchable targets of all quarterbacks. Sure, Rodgers is a Hall of Famer, but he was not good last season, and DK's deep vertical game is going to suffer in a low-volume offense with a quarterback whose best years are well in the rearview mirror. Now, I know what you're going to comment down below, but he's a wide receiver 1, the target share. Cool, but that's the exact logic people used to defend George Pickens last year. And Pickens, he averaged a whopping 11.3 points per game and finished as a wide receiver 35. And Metcalf is quite literally the one-for-one replacement for George Pickens in this offense. Oh, and don't bring up Davante Adams either. Adams only started producing in New York last year once the Jets were completely out of contention and Rodgers started force-feeding them in meaningless games. And even with that, Adams only finished as a top 12 wide receiver in 2 of those weeks, despite getting 11 or more targets in all but 1 game. Now we have DK Metcalf, who's not going to play out of the slot like Adams did last year, but more as a vertical perimeter threat. Rodgers doesn't have the volume or the deep ball precision anymore to make that role fantasy relevant week to week. Yes, Metcalf's ADP is not as high as it has been in recent years, but even at a value, he's still not a guy I want clogging up my wide receiver 2 slot. There are other wide receivers going after him like Jameson Williams, George Pickens, and many others that have more upside than he does on a week-to-week basis. I'd rather just wait and take one of those guys. Next up, Deebo Samuel, and let's be honest here, we've probably seen the best of this guy. Since his 2021 breakout season where he averaged 21 points per game and looked like a cheat code, it's been a steady slide downhill. 2022, just 13 points per game. 2023, all the way down to 10 points per game. Last year, also 10 points per game, even though Brandon Ayuk basically missed the entire season. You'd think with Ayuk out, Deebo would have stepped up, right? Well, the opposite happened. His target share, it dropped to 45th among wide receivers. His target rate per route, 58th among wide receivers. But the most concerning thing here, not his target rate, not his target share, his yards after catch. In 2021, he ranked 2nd among all wide receivers in yards after the catch. And even in 2022 and 2023, he was still pretty good, ranking 8th and 9th. But last year, he dropped all the way down to 14th. And it's not just the stats. If you watched this guy last year, or if you even watched him in OTAs and minicamp this year, this guy is significantly slower than he was in that 2021 breakout year. And now we're getting pics and clips of him in camp looking, well, let's just say, not in the best shape. Oh, and now he's on the Commanders, leaving Kyle Shanahan's offense, which is one of the best for a player like Deebo Samuel, to join a Washington team that's still going to try to figure out who he is. At this point, it looks like 2021 was a complete outlier season for Deebo Samuel. Now, I know you're not drafting him for that kind of upside anymore, but really, I don't think you're getting any upside here, and I don't think there's any reason to even draft Deebo Samuel in 2025. Speaking of guys whose elite season might have just been a blip, let's talk Cooper Kupp. Again, in 2021, he gave us one of the greatest fantasy wide receiver seasons of all time. Triple Crown winner, 25 points per game, dominant. But unfortunately, that season is long gone. The last 2 years, he's averaged just 13 and 14 points per game. And let's look at the situation he's in now. He goes from Sean McVay's offense to whatever the offense Mike Macdonald is putting together in Seattle. Macdonald is a defensive coach. He wants to run the football. It's going to be a slower, run-heavier offense. And his quarterback, well, it's not Matthew Stafford anymore. It's Sam Darnold. But even more concerning for Cooper Kupp is he's completely lost his ability to separate. In 2021, Kupp ranked 16th in route wins and 19th in wins versus man coverage. Last year, those numbers were 50th and 70th respectively. That is a massive drop. Also, his yards after catch. He led the league in 2021. Last year, 37th. The explosiveness is gone. The separation is gone. His quarterback is worse. His offense is worse. And oh, by the way, he's 32 years old. Look, Kupp will probably have a few good games here and there, but that consistency, it's completely gone, and that upside, it's also completely gone. So wherever Kupp falls in drafts, I don't care. It's not far enough. The guy is done. We've seen his best years. I am passing on Cooper Kupp in 2025. And if you're ready to get your fantasy football fix on and start drafting right now, you got to check out UnderdogFantasy.com. They have best ball drafts going on all offseason long, including their flagship Best Ball Mania 6, which is going to make multiple millionaires in 2025. Just go to UnderdogFantasy.com, join using promo code ENDGAME, because not only is that going to get you a free pick that you can use among any sport, but also up to $1,000 in bonus cash that you can use to start drafting right now. But it's not just old guys. What about a rookie, Emeka Egbuka? Look, the talent is there. Don't get me wrong. But the situation is what makes him undraftable in redraft leagues. First of all, he's being taken ahead of his own teammate Jalen McMillan, who's in a far better position to produce. McMillan will likely play the wide receiver 2 role opposite Mike Evans on the outside. Not to mention, he was in this system last year. He flashed last year. The path is clear for him. But Egbuka, this is a guy who needs to operate out of the slot. That is where he thrived in college. The only problem is, that's also where Chris Godwin plays. And it sounds like Godwin is expected to be fully healthy and ready for week 1. So if Evans is on one boundary, McMillan's on the other, and Godwin is in the slot, where exactly does that leave Egbuka? Answer? Probably on the sideline for a lot of snaps. Unless there is an injury, and maybe even multiple injuries, he's not going to see the field consistently. Yes, he's hyped coming into the draft, and yes, he's seen as one of the most polished receivers in this class. But polish doesn't matter if you can't get on the field. Outside of a significant injury to Evans, or even better, Godwin, Egbuka is not going to see enough targets to matter in redraft leagues this year. He's a dynasty stash, sure, but in redraft, he's just a trap. And last but definitely least, Quentin Johnston. Look, why are we still drafting this guy? I tried to give him a second chance last year, but the improvement just wasn't there. In year 2, he ranked 39th in target share, 29th in target rate, 57th in ADOT. Really? For an ex-wide receiver that's supposed to be a big play guy? 45th in air yard share, and just 12 red zone targets, ranking 34th among all receivers. Those are terrible stats for a guy who's supposed to be your vertical, deep threat, red zone target wide receiver. But if that wasn't enough, what about this? All the Chargers did this offseason was re-sign Mike Williams this year. Now, I don't think Mike Williams is really a threat, but if they believed in Quentin Johnston, would they really need to go out and sign Mike Williams? Oh, and then in the draft, they took Trey Harris, one of the best X-receivers in this class. These aren't depth moves. These are moves that say, we're not really sold on QJ. Yes, he was raw coming out of TCU, and yes, I knew he would need time to develop. But entering year 3, you think the Chargers would be all in on this guy if they saw the development they wanted to, and instead, they're sending us signals that we are all out on this guy. And frankly, I would just rather draft Trey Harris over Quentin Johnston. I can't believe this guy is still being drafted in fantasy leagues after what we've seen each of the first 2 years. Just give me Trey Harris, the guy who's probably going to be the starting X receiver by the season's end. And I'm going to leave QJ on the waiver wire or on somebody else's bench in 2025. So now you know 5 wide receivers you got to avoid in fantasy this year, but you're going to need to know way more than that if you're going to dominate in 2025. But don't worry, we got you covered. Everything you need in our playlist right here.